The only other story out there is kind of a small one. The president was buddies with a pedophile. On Friday, the Wall Street Journal dropped an absolute bombshell. They are reporting that in 2003, Trump sent a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday that was sexually suggestive. Yeah, it's the most inappropriate birthday gift since Carvel debuted Fudgy the Hung Like a Whale.
And some of the harshest criticism is actually coming from Trump's most fervent supporters. Even the QAnon shaman posted, "Fuck this stupid piece of shit, what a fraud." And once you've lost dipshit Daniel Boone here, you are in trouble. And it's understandable why Trump's struggling to get even his own base to take his word for it that there is nothing to see here, because to do so...
It takes a special kind of delusion to confuse chaos for genius, and an even greater one to think shouting the same slogans louder somehow makes them profound. That's where Stephen Colbert and John Oliver step in, armed with wit sharp enough to cut through the fog machine of self-promotion. They don't just call out the circus, they torch the tent, mock the clown, and make sure the audience knows the show was always a cheap rerun pretending to be history.
The latest development in this story is that soon we may be able to see Trump's name in those files for ourselves, because last night, in defiance of the president with a Republican majority, the House Oversight Committee voted to subpoena all documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case in a vote of 8-2. As in...
Although this week, we learned there was an extenuating circumstance.
The Trump administration pardoned Paul Walsack after his mother, Elizabeth Fago, attended a $1 million per plate fundraising dinner for the president's super PAC. 3 weeks after the dinner, the president signed the pardon, getting Walsack out of an 18-month prison sentence and a $4 million restitution payment.
It's true, she paid $1 million for a dinner, and suddenly her son got pardoned and out of paying $4 million back to the people he stole from. And the family seemed to implicitly acknowledge the quid pro quo, posting this image of mother and son magged up and captioned, "The righteous person faces many troubles, but the Lord comes to the rescue each time."
It takes a special kind of delusion to confuse chaos for genius, and an even greater one to think shouting the same slogans louder somehow makes them profound. That's where Stephen Colbert and John Oliver step in, armed with wit sharp enough to cut through the fog machine of self-promotion. They don't just call out the circus, they torch the tent, mock the clown, and make sure the audience knows the show was always a cheap rerun pretending to be history.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's letter featured several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with heavy marker. In the drawing, a pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. Do you know what that means? That means Donald Trump has drawn pubic hair on every executive order.
Colbert has spent years watching Trump's every move with the exasperated energy of a parent trying to keep a toddler from sticking a fork into an electrical outlet. Oliver, meanwhile, approaches Trump with the giddy enthusiasm of a documentarian who's just discovered a species so bizarre it defies explanation. Together, they form a two-man wrecking crew dismantling the mythology Trump has built around himself.
The president made a big deal about how he broke off the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein a long time ago. But according to Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, Jeffrey said he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a crook. Wow! That's extraordinary. Amazing. Jeffrey Epstein breaking it off with you because you're a crook. It's like walking into an intervention organized by Rudy Giuliani.
For Colbert, the comedy practically writes itself. Trump presents himself as a serious leader, but his entire persona is that of a man permanently stuck in audition mode. He's less a president and more a contestant on a never-ending reality competition, one where the prize is attention and the penalty for losing is being forgotten. Colbert seizes on that vanity, portraying him not as a titan of politics, but as a small man in an oversized suit, desperately trying to look bigger than he is.
As strange as that sounds, the typewritten part of the letter is even stranger because it appears to be sort of a short, creepy screenplay between Trump and Epstein that goes, voiceover, there must be more to life than having everything. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Yes, we do. Come to think of it, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you.
Oliver, on the other hand, relishes the absurdity of the details. He thrives on dissecting Trump's endless contradictions. This is a man who rails against the so-called elites while living in a golden tower, who claims to speak for the forgotten working class while bragging about private jets, who talks about draining the swamp while building his administration out of alligators in expensive suits. Oliver exposes the joke by piling on the receipts, transforming Trump's contradictions into a parody of themselves.
Over the years, is irrelevant or sheer coincidence that all Trump did was repeatedly host Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, have him at his wedding, hang out with him at Victoria's Secret fashion shows, get listed as a passenger on his plane 8 times, joke with him at a party while pointing out hot women and saying something into his ear that got the most grotesque smile in the history of human expressions. Tell a reporter, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy, he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, and allegedly hosts a calendar girl competition where, other than the 24 or so women flown in to provide the entertainment, the only guests were him and Jeffrey Epstein.
The power of their combined roast lies in how they strip away Trump's illusion of control. He thrives on projecting strength, but Colbert and Oliver zero in on the fragility underneath. Every rant, every meltdown, every frantic attempt to dominate the conversation is less about power and more about panic. Trump isn't the fearless strongman he pretends to be. He's a man terrified of silence, because silence means he's no longer the center of attention. Colbert paints him as the world's neediest head of state, a man who can't function without applause. He craves validation so badly that entire rallies exist just to serve as therapy sessions for his ego. Oliver then adds the cutting observation: when your entire leadership style depends on the volume of cheering crowds, you're not a leader, you're a hype man for yourself. Together, they transform Trump's rallies from demonstrations of power into group therapy sessions for a fragile brand. The comedy lands hardest when Colbert and Oliver highlight how little Trump actually achieves compared to how much he boasts. He talks about winning as if it's a permanent state of being, yet the scoreboard tells another story.
Trump's now pardoned or granting clemency to most of the Republican congressmen convicted of felonies in the 21st century. But his pardons have also extended to his financial supporters, because last month he pardoned Paul Warsack, a nursing home executive who'd been convicted after allegedly withholding more than $10 million from the paychecks of the nurses, doctors and others who worked at his facilities, using the money to buy, among other things, a $2 million yacht. It's an almost cartoonishly evil crime.
Failed policies, broken promises, revolving staff. Trump collects losses like trading cards, but insists he's undefeated. Colbert mocks the delusion by treating him like the kid on the playground who insists he won a race no one else was running. Oliver, meanwhile, takes the receipts and waves them around, reminding everyone that if success is measured by chaos, then Trump truly is number one. They also target the absurdity of Trump's obsession with image. The humor stings because the truth is obvious. When the costume is this desperate, the performance must be even worse. Colbert and Oliver also zero in on Trump's bizarre relationship with facts. He treats truth like a buffet, picking only what he likes and ignoring the rest. Colbert ridicules the shamelessness of it, mocking the way Trump insists that reality itself bends to his will. Oliver goes further, cataloging the absurdity of a president who lies so frequently that his greatest achievement may be redefining the word truth into something meaningless. Together, they make the case that Trump didn't just distort reality, he tried to replace it with his own cheap knockoff version.
No! No, you fool! Now there's one less job. Don't you see? You fell into her trap. But it makes sense. He fires anyone who gives him bad news. Mr. Dr. Cardiologist, you clearly rigged my cholesterol to be 1,000 and said my blood type was aioli. You're fired. I happen to know it's honey mustard.
When it comes to Trump's leadership style, Oliver delivers blow after blow. He doesn't lead, they argue. He reacts. Every decision is driven by impulse, every policy is shaped by ego, and every mistake is followed by a performance designed to convince people it was intentional. Colbert laughs at the absurdity of a commander-in-chief who governs like a man tweeting from the back of a limousine. Oliver frames it more brutally. Trump's presidency isn't a strategy. It's a tantrum stretched over years. One of the sharpest angles of their roast is how Trump confuses division with dominance. He thrives on chaos, feeding off anger, amplifying resentment, and mistaking the noise for power. Colbert skewers the theatrics, painting him as a carnival barker who discovered outrage is the cheapest ticket to sell. Oliver then tears apart the damage, pointing out that while Trump may love the spectacle, the cost is a nation left exhausted, fractured, and cynical. Colbert turns this into a running joke, portraying Trump as the guy who constantly accuses others of what he's guilty of. Oliver turns it into a grim tally, reminding audiences that hypocrisy isn't a quirk of Trump's personality. It's the engine that drives it.
In D.C., this happened.
President Trump caught White House reporters off guard today when he took a walk on the roof.
Sir, why are you on the roof? Mr. President, what are you doing up there?
I mean, it's a fair question, though it also says a lot about the chaos of this administration that the president just fully snoopied on national TV, and we'll probably forget about it by next week.
The genius of Colbert's destruction is how they balance mockery with exposure. Trump wants to be remembered as a historic figure, but through their eyes, he's reduced to a caricature. Colbert highlights the pettiness, the obsession with ratings, the fixation on crowd sizes, the bizarre feuds with comedians and TV hosts. Oliver highlights the absurdity of a president who seemed less interested in governing than in starring in his never-ending episode of political reality television. Oliver goes further, laughing at the fragility of a man who claims to be strong while behaving like the world's most sensitive reality star. The punchline is brutal. Trump isn't tough, he's tenderized by his own insecurities. Every legacy Trump claims collapses under their scrutiny. He promised greatness, but delivered chaos. He promised unity, but delivered division. He promised strength, but left behind weakness disguised as bravado.
At this point, Trump isn't even trying to hide his awfulness. His critics accuse him of being a wannabe dictator, so what does he do? He sits down with Hungarian dictator and elephant seal barking for a trout, Viktor Orban. Orban went down to Mar-a-Lago on Friday for an official fake state visit with the not president. Orban's a bad guy. In the last decade, he has weakened the institutions of democracy, eroded the legal system, and eliminated effective opposition. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
Colbert turns this into a nightly comedy routine, a reminder that the emperor has no clothes, just a badly tailored suit. Oliver turns it into a weekly sermon, a detailed record of every broken promise and failed performance. Together, they ensure the history books won't remember Trump as a transformative leader, but as a cautionary tale of ego run amok. By the end, the destruction is total. Trump's mythology lies in ruins, his persona exposed as a fragile act, his legacy reduced to noise. And the laughter, as they both prove, isn't with him. It's at him. Trump always wanted to be remembered as the biggest, the greatest, the most talked about figure in American history. Thanks to Colbert and Oliver, he will be remembered, but not as a statesman, not as a leader, and not as a legend. He'll be remembered as the man who turned the presidency into a comedy sketch and never realized he was the joke.
Maybe. Because in a new interview, Trump won't rule out seeking a third term in the White House. Now, what kind of headline is that? Who cares what he won't rule out? I won't rule out lying down on the Krispy Kreme conveyor belt and letting the glaze just take me. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen. The Constitution forbids it.
What makes their destruction of Trump so satisfying is that it's not just about jokes. It's about exposing the hollowness of his entire performance. Colbert treats every speech and appearance like a rerun of the same bad sitcom. The laugh track may still be playing, but the script hasn't changed in years. Oliver then takes that same routine and picks it apart frame by frame, showing that behind the noise, nothing of substance has ever existed. It's smoke, mirrors, and a fragile ego desperately pretending to be granite. Trump has always believed that repetition equals truth, that if he says the same line enough times, it transforms into wisdom. Colbert ridicules this by mocking the monotony, pointing out how the audience isn't inspired. They're hypnotized. Oliver digs deeper, exposing the strategy of exhausting the public with lies until fatigue becomes acceptance. Together, they puncture the illusion, reminding people that the louder Trump gets, the emptier his words become.
The thing is, it got even weirder.
What are you trying to build?
Can you approve? You say more missiles? Are you building missiles? What?
You know, that may actually be a perfect encapsulation of Trump's presidency. A bunch of people yelling, "What the fuck are you doing?" while he does a C- Hitler impression.
And then there's his obsession with legacy. He talks about being historic, about reshaping America, about being the most consequential president. Colbert turns this claim into a nightly farce, poking at how every attempt to cement his place in history ends with him cementing his reputation as the most easily mocked politician alive. Oliver backs it up with detail, pointing to scandals, failures, and absurd moments that ensure Trump's legacy is less about greatness and more about absurdity. He wanted Mount Rushmore, but he'll get a footnote in the chapter on national embarrassment. The comedy sharpens when they highlight how Trump can't escape his own contradictions. He promises loyalty, but betrays allies. He preaches law and order, but dodges accountability. Ultimately, Colbert and Oliver don't just roast Trump, they make him smaller. They take the grandiose image he's built and shrink it down to its true scale. A fragile man playing dress-up in the costume of a strong leader. The myth collapses under their combined assault. What remains is not a giant of history, but a desperate showman who mistook laughter for respect. And that's the final sting. Trump always wanted to be untouchable, but thanks to Colbert and Oliver, he's unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. His greatest fear wasn't losing an election or a crowd, it was being laughed at. And now, the laughter follows him everywhere, louder than any applause he'll ever chase.